What's good, my ghouls and goblins? Welcome back to your weekly live streaming horror movie podcast, Reely Scared. My name is Taylor. I'm always your guide on the journey, and I'm usually joined by the top goblin, Connor Breedlove, who is not joining me tonight. Connie Good Health got his second dose. He's got those Johnson & Johnson blues. You hate to see it. You hate to hear it. We miss him, but we got to keep the show going anyway. We got to do what we got to do. And thankfully, I'm not alone. This is the show in which every single week we are joined by special guests. Yippee. Thank you, Kevin Thomas in the chat. Love to see you. This is the show in which every single week we are joined by special guests to discuss a horror genre film of their choice. You never know what you're going to get. You never know who's going to join you, and you never know what movie you're going to discuss. And we have a very interesting one tonight. I'm very excited for this one. Going to bring our special guests in. Of course, I can't do that until they let me know how they want to be introduced in the private chat. Now, see, if you don't know, on the George Lucas Talk Show, when it's time for guests to be introduced and brought on the show, Watto, who couldn't join us tonight, he was busy dealing junk, couldn't join us tonight, but he will ask the guests how they want to be introduced, and they put it in the private chat, and then they bring them on. You read it verbatim. I got one here. He's ready to come in. Let's bring him in. Ghouls and Goblins, put your hands together for EGOT winner, Whoopi Goldberg.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Whoopi, yippee. Thank you for joining us tonight, Patrick.
Thank you for having me.
It's a bless. It's a thrill. Our other guest, I don't think he submitted how he wants to be introduced. So I'm just going to say, here it is. First of all, boo! Connor Ratliff is an actor and comedian who works occasionally on various things.
Hello. Hi there, Taylor. How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm doing okay.
Hi, Connor.
How are you? Patrick, you cut your beard.
I did. I cut my beard.
Cut your hair?
I cut my hair too. Yeah, I got a haircut.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm seeing it in motion. I've seen the photographs online. I'm lobbying for Patrick to shave down to the mustache.
Mm-hmm.
He won't do it.
I'll do it.
I think you could pull off a mustache. I thought you
should try it.
I have done it before. I don't love it. I believe on this day on Facebook it popped up, so I'm going to see if I can. This is me with a mustache. I don't love it because I feel like I look like a cop. You know.
I think you look like Tom Selleck.
And what was Tom Selleck famous for playing?
Private investigator.
But he probably used to be a cop. And he's a cop on Blue Bloods. He's a cop on Blue Bloods.
No, he was a Vietnam veteran.
I never watched the show.
And a private investigator. I don't believe he was ever a cop. Yeah, I'm going to look it up, but I don't think Thomas Magnum was a cop.
Is there anything wrong with being a gumshoe? I don't know.
Yeah, what's your deal with being a gumshoe?
Are all gumshoes bastards?
AGAB.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, guys. I'm genuinely super excited to have you guys on Reely Scared tonight. Clearly, I'm a fan. I've watched God knows how many hours of the George Lucas Talk Show this past year. It's really been a great contribution to like my mental, emotional health. It's been the bright light that's gotten me through this past year. So I'm honored and thrilled to have you guys joining us. It's
thank you for watching.
It's almost kind of a little surreal because I spent so much time watching you guys on StreamYard, and now I'm in the StreamYard with you.
It's sometimes people forget that we are actually real people too. So this is good that you get to see that.
That's a great point, Connor.
Yeah, the trick that you see tonight is not the same Patrick that you see him on the show. This is real.
I look drastically different. different.
You do.
Yeah.
Connor, is it nice to come on and not have to spray down in the silver?
Yeah, although the thing that I because we are currently on hiatus, and so what I realized is that doing the show once a week meant I had to do a shower at least once a week to wash the white spray out of my hair and beard, and without the show to do that, I don't necessarily have a motivation to bathe or shower. And so I'm now at the longest I've gone during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I notice it, I can feel it, but I won't shower today. I probably won't shower tomorrow.
Maybe
Why would
Sunday, maybe Saturday night or Sunday.
Maybe someday. I think that's what I
Maybe
thought you said at
someday.
first, and I think that's more accurate. Maybe
I think
someday.
that's better. Yeah, we'll take that.
I get it. I have like 3 bathrobes, and I just find myself in a revolving door of changing in and out of these bathrobes without ever needing to bathe or shower. And it's just like,
Mhm.
I don't need to wear clothes. I'm just lounging around like sort of Hugh Hefner type.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
I'm just in my bedroom doing podcasts instead of living in a mansion.
Good for you. Good for you. Getting all the good parts out of being Hugh Hefner, just getting to wear robes, you know?
Yeah.
Not all that pesky mansion stuff.
Yeah.
Being surrounded by women, you know? You don't need that.
Who has the time for that? Thanks for coming on.
I don't need a grotto. He had a grotto, right?
We don't want grottos. No grottos.
Is a grotto? I think a grotto could be kind of good. No?
Feels like it gets grimy after a little bit.
When I lived in England, I discovered that that's what whenever they have like a Santa Claus at a shopping center or something, they refer to it as Santa's grotto. And that's just when I think of a grotto, that word always has kind of a swampy connotation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was always, that was a strange thing to adjust to, the idea that the word grotto and Santa were always linked so closely there.
Sure.
I guess Father Christmas had a grotto.
I do always think of like green, like waters when I think about it. I don't know what Santa would be doing in a grotto. He'd be very uncomfortable in that, wet
There's
clothes.
no way to find out. There's literally no way to find out.
I've seen a couple people bring it up in the chat, and I think this has been myth busted already, but I just want to make sure I recognize it. This so-called rumor of Star Wars Detours hitting Disney Plus the same day that you announced the hiatus. That is not true, right?
I mean, it is not. Connor, you can talk.
It is true that the news of the possibility seemed to break with uncanny timing the second we announced that we were completely burned out and not going to be doing shows for who knows how long. It did feel, you could take it either way. You could either take it as confirmation that our work is done because the universe sort of, like, if it turns out to be true, there's a part of me that'll think like, oh, we did it. It's sort of like the show did what it set out to do from the very first live stream. We got them to release Detours. It doesn't seem like it's like it. No one has verified. This is just a story that like everyone who's reporting on it is just picking up the original Vulcan reporter or whatever thing. There's been no further reporting to confirm it. I did notice the other night someone on Twitter had started a fake Twitter account that was called Disney Plus Insider and then the number 1. But everything about it looked like Disney Plus Insider, but it had exactly 4 tweets and all of them were about Detours. Very convincing looking tweets that said, here's all the things that are coming out in May on Disney Plus, and they just like stick Detours in the middle. When you see that, it looks very convincing. It looks very I will say that I said to Patrick and Griffin because like we don't know whether or not we're still trying to figure out, are we going to do something for Star Wars Day or not? And if Star Wars Detours is released on Star Wars Day, a lot of people are like, oh, that means you have to do a watch-a-thon. I'm like, no, I think if Star Wars Detours is released on Star Wars Day, I think out of respect, Star Wars Day belongs to Disney Plus. Everyone needs to go to Disney Plus and watch all 39 episodes. I don't think they need anyone riffing on it. I just think it's like, let's respect the work of the creator.
Yeah.
It would be so funny to me if it was true. I don't think it's true.
I'll say this, and I'm not going to elaborate on what I'm about to say. I don't think it's true.
Oh.
And I'm not going to add anything else to that. Okay.
Patrick has little birdies.
I got little birdies
that whisper to him.
We'll see, but I don't think it's true.
It would be very. Now, here's what we were saying that everything about it seems implausible because they would have, in order to finish it, we always say all they have to do is press a button, but there would be some work that would need to go into completing them, we think. Maybe not, though. We don't know. I will say that when the movie Strange Magic was released, which was the last Lucas associated thing that he actually was a part of, it was a fully completed animated movie that no one in the industry seemed to know about until 2 months before release date. It just appeared out of nowhere. So it is not impossible that if they decided they wanted this to be a top secret project a year or two ago, with the idea that the only way you could have it come out was as like a fun Star Wars Day drop, they could have been planning this for a while. And the people who are saying it's not going to happen might be people who are not in the loop on this. Because if you were going to complete Star Wars Detours, you wouldn't necessarily, you might have a rogue squadron of people that it's like, you guys are going to finish this. Don't tell anybody. And then put it out that way. That would certainly be a fun way to do it. Like, let's not clue in all the players on this so that we'll even have official people denying it or whatever, and it's because we haven't, it could be a top secret mission.
Rogue 2. That's what Rogue 2 is all about.
Rogue 2. I wonder, even if the rumor or reporting itself was like disingenuous, I wonder if there is still some level of like, if they saw people responding to it so positively, with so much enthusiasm, they'd go, well, maybe we should just put it on after all.
That's my hope, is that if it's not true, that the amount of attention it's gotten might be enough to make somebody who has the power to say yes.
And I mean, I don't think I think there's a world where that episode that leaked a few months ago was a Deadpool-esque test to see how the audience would react. You know, when Deadpool was in development, like a little test video got leaked out and everyone was like, yeah, this rules. And then Deadpool happened.
Yeah.
So I don't think that is beyond the realm of possibility, but I don't know.
I'd be stunned if there weren't at least conversations happening about what do we do with this, because it is unprecedented to have this much work by a major filmmaker just buried forever.
Yeah.
Like you can't name because George Lucas funded it independently. It's rare. No one else is usually in a position. Francis Ford Coppola would not have been in a position to independently finance a Godfather cartoon series. So there never would have been a possibility for Paramount to say like, no, we're not going to release Godfather Detours, And so what do you do if you're a big company and you have this thing and it's, the brainchild of George Lucas? Yeah. I feel like whether it ends up being great or good, or people love it, people hate it, I think it's the kind of show that's going to, particularly the longer the more of an artifact it is of a slightly other era of Star Wars.
Right.
You're going to get a mix of reactions to it. But I think there's not really a great justification for never releasing it, purely from a film history perspective.
Yeah. Sure.
You can't judge George Lucas's full body of work without judging this. And that's just like, for it to be a secret, I can't think of any other major artist where you'd have like, the Medicis like holding back paintings or something, like
it's also a show that I don't think anyone will have a down the middle opinion on. You will either feel one way or another way on it, and there's no one that'll be like, it's fine. Like, it's in the nature of the show, from what is out there and what people have seen. I think it will definitely make conversations happen, which is, I assume something they would want. But.
Yeah.
And I think from just a pure objective standpoint, like, a man creates, the almost inarguably the most iconic, like, cherished movie franchise and world, and that's affected people so many different ways, and like he had one last thing to say about that. And he did it, what was it, is it 37 episodes, right? 37
39.
Yeah,
39.
But also that report indicated that there could be 52. I don't know where I don't think
there's no concrete number out there. And I think more scripts than that have been finished.
Yeah.
So I don't know if recording was done for those. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. Just the objective curiosity of like, what is that? Why wouldn't you put it out? Who wouldn't want to see that?
I'll tell you what I would do if I was the one deciding, and if let's say I was in the room and I was pitching to the people who can make the decision. if they were saying we can't release it, people will be too mad, they'll be too this, they'll be too that. I would say, give me a little piece of real estate within the theme park, like near Galaxy's Edge, just the smallest little place, and put in a place that's just called the Star Wars Detours Theater. And it would be like, that Penny Arcade on Main Street at Disney World, Disneyland, where you go in and there's like the little black and white cartoons. You just have a little room like that where all of the episodes of Detours are just playing on a loop.
That's very funny.
And because I do think it's the kind of thing that like people could come in and like listen, watch for a minute and be like, oh yeah, I get it, or whatever.
I got it. Yeah, we got it.
And I think that would be a fun way to release it if you couldn't, because it would become a special thing that you could only see it at the theme park, and you probably couldn't see it all because they'd have to cycle people out that you get like 10 minutes to watch or something, so you can see one segment or something.
Do you think it? And by the way, I want to say I expected nothing less that the first like 20 minutes of the show would be Star Wars Detours talk. Yeah. I'm thrilled. I'm not entertaining this conversation. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. Do you think that with the way that Star Wars discourse has become, and also if you're not familiar with George Lucas Talk Show, which thankfully I think most of the people watching tonight are, but if you're a really scared person and you're completely lost on what we're talking about, at this point I would just recommend Googling it really quick. But Star Wars Detours was this sort of lost animated series that George Lucas had created and fully financed and finished before selling Star Wars to Disney, and they never put it out. That's the short of it. Yeah. With the way like Star Wars discourse goes these days, I wonder if people would cling to it in this like purist way of like, oh, this is the last true canon statement on stuff. Like this is real Star, like not any of that Kathleen stuff,
we thought McClunky was the end of it, but actually here's this,
I think the comment that Horde Jedi has made is the truest thing, which is that Star Wars Detours is better than Star Wars Discourse.
Yeah.
Truer words never been spoken.
The fun thing about the three of us on this show is that we hate Star Wars Discourse. We all are exhausted.
What I like about Star Wars Detours is that I think one of the big problems with Star Wars fandom is people taking Star Wars too seriously.
Yeah.
And the people who take it, a lot of the people who take it too seriously, the only thing they don't take seriously is the actual political message of George Lucas's Star Wars. So you'll get people who are very like right wing who are also completely humorless about Star Wars being anti-fascist. What?
Connor, that was too long. Can you shorten that? It was just too many words.
What do you want me to say?
Just shorten it a little bit. You said it's anti-fascist?
Oh, Star Wars is Antifa.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's
it's cleaner. I think that I'm always in favor of anything that makes people not be so just things that I like, things that kind of undermine the seriousness of Star Wars fandom. I think it's great that the Ewok movies are out on Disney Plus now, because I think the Ewok movies were very influential to me in the transition from being a child to being a teenager. That the Ewok movies, I knew they weren't as good as the regular Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
But they also gave me a sense that like, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the special editions came around and then the prequels came around, I always thought it was funny. I thought like I already got everything I could have possibly wanted out of Star Wars from the first movie, let alone the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time the third movie came around, and I was probably not as into Jedi as I was into Empire, but I still loved it. And then you have these Ewok movies, and they kind of just show you that like, yeah, this is Star Wars too. Mm-hmm. And it's just a teddy bear adventure with a lower budget, and there's just like stuff that makes no sense. Like the Ewoks don't speak English in the first one, and then they suddenly do in the second one. And there's just like all these things that I feel like there are people who get real hung up on. Like the most infuriating thing to me is see how the people who get angry about the Disney Star Wars ruining everything. It's just like, if you think this is when Star Wars got ruined, there's just no part of me that will ever understand that, because it was never the second Star Wars thing that ever happened was the holiday special. and the amount of care and attention that has gone into trying to world build in the Disney Star Wars era is so much more even than a lot of the things that were happening in the Lucas era, where he'd kind of be like, they'd be like, so what? People will complain. You know, like there were just so many things that were like, wow, we like nothing in a saga where you literally have a character just say like, oh yeah, I lied, but it was kind of true from a certain point of view. Like they'll never, it's the kind of like retcon that you'd make up in an improv show or something. And this is in the resolution of a major movie. I just don't think any of it, it's all supposed to just be fun. And I've never seen it as anything other than fun, even though it's a huge part of my cultural, like, brain DNA. It's like this kind of storytelling. It's always just supposed to be like fun and weird and crazy. Yeah. And you also don't have to like all of it. Like you can pick and choose the parts you like. And I actually sometimes like the parts. I've gotten more pleasure as a comedian out of the parts that I don't like than out of the parts that I do like, you know, like there's my take on Han Solo is this character is really cool. Yeah. And I don't get a lot out of it, but I have a lot more sort of gas in the tank about things like Dexter Jettster or someone like a character that if I was writing a Star Wars movie, I wouldn't necessarily put that character in, but it's a lot more fun in a lot of ways.
And I think
that's what we're here to talk about tonight is Star Wars and Dexter Jettster.
Yeah. Well, and before we move on to Abbott and Costello, as we will, I promise, I've just always wanted to ask this in general because George Lucas Talk Show, you know, the past year you've done it virtually for obvious reasons, and that's been a really interesting iteration and like sort of reimagining of the show. But you did it, you know, a live show for years prior. Yeah. And I've been doing it for a while. And I've always just wondered, I don't know if this has ever been confirmed for you blatantly or if you've ever gotten just any sort of whisper or inkling, but do you think there's any degree in which like George Lucas is aware of the show?
I think it would be surprising if he did not know it existed in some form. Yeah. There's enough people around him and in his close circle who are aware and know that it is a thing. So I would be surprised if word did not get back to him. Also, if he's anything like me, he gets the Google alerts for his own name every day. So I assume they just pop up.
It's hard to know. I know that there probably is maybe more awareness at various levels from individual to individual within Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, last night I was watching the Lucas. We've been talking about the Lucas Museum for years and years because it's not a Star Wars show. It's a George Lucas show. And the main thing he's been working on since retiring is the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. And so this has been a topic. I remember there was one a few years ago. I said to Patrick before one of the shows, I said, I think I'm going to be doing a lot of more Norman Rockwell stuff this year. And he's like, why? I'm like, because there's going to be a Norman Rockwell stuff in the museum. And so last night, the Lucas Museum was doing a live stream on YouTube and Facebook. This really amazing artist named Judy Baca, who did this tremendous mural in Los Angeles. And the Lucas Museum is going to have an exhibit of all of her archives of how this mural was put together.
Hang on, I wanna commit to this. Slight Cereal just said meet up at the Lucas Museum after the pandemic. When it opens up, sure, we will gladly do a meetup at the museum. Done deal. I will commit to it right now.
When things open up and the museum opens up, I plan to go there as much as I can for someone who lives on the other side of the country. I don't know, but here's the thing I'll say is I was tweeting yesterday about the Lucas Museum because they were doing this really cool live stream. And I was just, you know, lying on my couch watching it, commenting on Facebook, saying nice things. And then I tweeted about it from the George Lucas Talk Show Twitter account, and the Lucas Museum account retweeted it. So George Lucas Talk Show is on the Lucas Museum's Twitter feed, and which is just great. And then I, from my own Twitter account, tweeted about how I can't wait to go to this museum when I'm there. And the Lucas Museum account, I hadn't tagged them in it. They responded to me and said, the exact words what they say to me. It said,
it was a very funny tweet. The one that
it was a real. they said, "We can't wait for you to visit. Thanks for watching." And then they did the prayer hands. And I immediately just saw a glimpse of like 2023, me like dressed up as George Lucas.
Yeah.
Showing a screenshot of this tweet to someone at the entrance to the museum, like trying to get in. We're not going to be troublemakers. That's the one thing. We're not going to do a bunch of stunts. I don't want the Lucas team to be worried about it.
I didn't even think about this. What if those prayer hands? What if we show up and it's just a big church?
Oh.
And they're just trying to tell us, they're like, you better get ready. Because guess what? This is what you're going to be doing there. It's going to be a big church.
I mean, the Church of Narrative Art, I would sign up. I'm not affiliated with any. Honestly, if George Lucas announced that the Museum of Narrative Art was actually its own religion, I'd be like, you know what? Fine. Like, if any figure in the world has earned allegiance from me,
yeah,
you know, I would join up. We are so like. That's a level at which, you know, like, I don't know. We had, there's all this news about Indiana Jones 5, and someone was tweeting, I think Matt Zoller-Seitz was tweeting about how it should be canon. It's canon that in Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, originally it was canon that in the part where you see old Indiana Jones, he had an eye patch, so he had lost an eye.
Yeah.
And so people were tweeting about how we need to see Indiana Jones lose an eye in the 5th movie, which I totally agree with. A few years ago on the stage show, we had John Kasdan, the co-writer of Solo. At the time, he was there was a writer's room for Indiana Jones 5 when it was still Spielberg that was going to direct it. I don't think anything from that writer's room necessarily is going to be in the real movie now that's James Mangold. But he kept pitching that we have to see Indiana Jones lose an eye. And Spielberg was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Because in the TV show," and Spielberg was just like, "I don't know what this," like, it was clear, like, Spielberg's awareness of what happened in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show was very,
yeah.
So I mentioned that only because it's like, if Steven Spielberg was too busy to know that Indiana Jones had lost an eye in the very highly promoted and publicized network TV show of Indiana Jones, it's reasonable to assume that George Lucas might not be aware of the George Lucas. You know?
Yeah. I don't even know how they would like breach that conversation of like, there's kind of this thing like somebody, you know, is you and your characters show up. And
I do know George Lucas historically has always been someone who has a good sense of humor about spoofs and people making fun of him. He's someone whose impulse is to play along. There was a famous story about Mort Drucker doing a parody of Empire Strikes Back, and Lucasfilm's lawyers sent a cease and desist to Mad Magazine. And in response, Mad Magazine sent them a copy of the letter that George Lucas had personally sent to Mad Magazine, praising Mort Drucker as like the modern day Leonardo da Vinci, and asking could he personally buy the artwork for his collection. So I'd like to think that George Lucas would like our show because we famously like George Lucas.
Right. Or
we wouldn't do this much of it, you know?
Yeah.
In the tone of the show, you know, and this is what I've always really appreciated in this past virtual run, where it's like you're doing the watch alongs and you're finding these like shows and pieces of media that, you know, don't really have a ton of modern attention or a huge following. You know, they don't, like there's not, at least there wasn't in my observation, like a dedicated Arliss fandom. But it's like now I've seen every episode of Arliss and I have this like reverence for. I've got a signed headshot of Robert Wolf. You know, like that's not something I expected to happen this past year. And you're always you're never punching down or making fun of in a cruel way. You're always, you know, you find the humor in it, but you still find what there is there to appreciate, and you find the fascinating stories that happen like both on screen and behind the scenes. And I think that carries over in just the entire spirit of the show, which is like, George Lucas, a very peculiar man with this huge legacy. And there's tons of facets of that to laugh at. Obviously there's funny things about Star Wars, as you've said here, but there's also just an intrinsic level of respect that I think is always present in your show, which is I think is actually harder to find. There's so many YouTube channels and streams and podcasts about movies and film, and I think a lot of them tend to be so cynical or so making fun of in a way that could be cruel or inconsiderate, where you have the perfect blend and tone and approach to it, which I think is very, very refreshing and is why your show is so fun and so enjoyable.
I mean, that's the hope. That's the hope, right?
I don't think we would. I don't think we'd be able to do it if it was that. Like, I don't think it would be any fun for us.
Yeah.
I don't think there are people in the culture who there are people in the culture who I genuinely loathe, and I think I could do an impression of them for a very short period of time or do a characterization of them.
Yeah.
In order to keep doing, it's just like with Griffin and the Watto character, he's now done that character. That character, how many minutes of screen time would you say Watto has in those two movies? Like 10?
Maybe 15, maybe.
Added a supercut of Watto.
Probably not even. It'd probably be like 8 minutes total or something.
It wouldn't be very much. And Griffin is now not even counting years that he did on stage. He's done 331 hours of Watto. It's just dwarfs the actual, like, those 12 minutes of Watto have been seen by just people all over the world. Millions and billions of people have seen that brief thing of Watto. But hundreds or possibly thousands of people have seen the 331 hours of Griffin Newman's Watto, and his Watto it's a character that he has affection for in a way that you couldn't with the actual if you were playing the actual Watto in the movie, you'd have to find like the dark heart of it that is not what our show is,
Yeah. No one has probably thought more about Watto than Griffin Newman, including George Lucas and anybody at Lucasfilm.
I think
the animators.
I think it's fair. Even if there's no way that they spent 331 hours thinking about Watto.
But I also think, I do want to point out and make clear that as weird as it is for Griffin to be thinking about Watto for that long, and Connor to be talking to Watto for that long, Connor's also playing a character, and I am not. Yeah. So I've realized where I'm like, it's the weirdest for me to have talked to Watto for 331 hours because I'm also being myself and have no reason to be like, well, yeah, of course this is Watto. He's a CGI character. It's a weird situation to be in.
You have rapport with Watto. You have this established relationship, and not many people can say that. So I think that's special. Should we talk about Abbott and Costello?
Yeah.
Well, I think it ties into what we were talking about before, because what we were saying about Star Wars detours and how people are going to have like a polarized reaction to it. It seems like this is a movie that, because it's Star Wars but funny.
Yeah.
A lot of things George Lucas has done have been things that have been very polarizing, because he'll sort of do, a thing that is one thing but also another thing, and he'll try new things. And I think,
hang on, Taylor, Connor, one sec. I'm just nervous that my background is too plain. I'll be right back. Hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. It's fascinating to read about the reaction at the time being, well, is it horror or is it comedy?
Yeah.
And reading about how people... There you go.
There it is.
Okay. I just wanted to make it feel a little bit more busy.
Poster, Patrick.
That's narrative art.
This is narrative art.
That's fantastic.
Good. It's a good poster. It was a quarantine purchase.
Now,
we've all done a little bit of that, yeah.
Now, yeah. Patrick's the one who chose this movie. I had never seen it before.
Yeah. Nope.
And Patrick,
nobody had any choice.
You have a long history with it.
I do have a long history. I mean, I feel like I was trying to figure out the timeline of things on when I first got introduced to things, because I remember I was big into the Universal Monsters as a kid, and I was big into Abbott and Costello as a kid, but I was also big into the Muppets as a kid, and I was trying to figure out and I was also big into old radio shows as a kid. So I was trying to figure out which came first, because did the Muppets introduce me to Vincent Price, which introduced me to the Universal Monsters, or did the radio shows introduce me to Abbott and Costello, which introduced me to the monsters, which introduced me to Vincent Price, to the like? I was trying to figure out what the order was, but we used to watch Abbott and Costello movies all the time. I mean, look at this. Look, we've got the collection right here, all the DVDs. It was like
Have you opened that?
Can I open it? Yeah, I can open it. Sure.
Yeah, it's great.
Look at this.
So is that all? That's all the shows and shorts and things like that.
These are just movies. This is 15 discs.
Movies.
I think it's like 32 movies or something like that. But this was so big for me as a kid because they used to run them on AMC all the time, like Saturday morning AMC. So we would tape them, and then I would just watch them over and over and over again. I was trying to figure out how many times I've legitimately seen this movie. And it's been a lot. Like, it's probably like 30 times. You know what I mean? Just over the almost 3 decades. So this movie has a very weird, long-standing connection for me. It was like one of the movies that I grew up watching, which does not mean that you guys cannot say what you did not like about this movie. I want to be clear. I want you guys to feel free to say whatever you're going to say. Just know that I may fundamentally disagree with it.
Yeah, your feelings might be hurt. This is the first time I ever seen this movie, and even beyond that, this is the first time I'd ever seen an Abbott and Costello film. Period. I'd seen some of the famous bits and routines and things like that, the smaller things, who's on first and all that. Obviously, I had a familiarity with who Abbott and Costello were, and when you suggested this film, I was very excited and intrigued because I knew what that was, but I'd never seen it, and it is certainly different than anything we've really covered on the show thus far. Most of what we've done older films and we've done campy films, but everything usually pretty down the line, straightforward horror to some degree. Whereas this is obviously a sort of mashup of genre and tone. So I was very intrigued by this. And Connor, now this was the first time you had seen this film too. Were you an Abbott and Costello person at all, or is that have you not really?
Mostly my experience with Abbott and Costello was the Warner Brothers cartoon A Tale of Two Kitties, which was pre-Sylvester Tweety Bird cartoon. And is that their voices or is that Mel Blanc? I don't even know if that's Mel Blanc.
I don't think it's them.
It's a really good impression.
Yeah.
By the way, Thomas Magnum was Navy SEAL. Sorry, this is the last thing I searched and I didn't say it. He was a Navy SEAL and then he became a private detective.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Although this is the Thomas Magnum. For some reason, I brought up the Thomas Magnum of the reboot. Tale of Two Kitties. I'm going to look it up. And what the one thing that always kind of bothered me, and this is just my fault, this isn't a flaw in the thing, is that I get them mixed up because Costello is the one who's always saying Abbott. Like when someone's catchphrase is the other character's name.
Right.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Tale of Two Kitties, which was the cartoon where the phrase I taught putty tat came up.
Really?
And Mel Blanc is Costello, and Warner Brothers Looney Tunes writer Ted Pierce is Babbitt.
Weird.
Ted Pierce, who did a lot of writing of things. That's interesting. So, but I was aware that, that's supposed to be Abbott and Costello. And, but this is actually the first complete Abbott and Costello thing that I watched. And I really liked it. I'll tell you my favorite moment in the movie is, and it's such a small moment, but it's just like a great, you can point to and say level of skill when he pulls the tablecloth and nothing falls down, and he kind of does a little very quick look to camera, and he's delighted with himself in the middle of a sequence where there's genuine suspense. They're running. Which is probably my favorite part of the movie is when they're running from one thing to the other. I think it's really good action when they're running from I think it's great, the part where they barricade the door and then the door opens in the other direction. Stuff like that is just really good. I'll tell you the part that and this isn't a criticism, it's just an observation it's just a very negative observation. If I could change anything in the movie, it would be there's that long sequence where they're sort of like toying with you, where Dracula is like the thing is opening and closing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was looking at it, I was trying to track, if I was Bela Lugosi, why he doesn't kill them.
Like, yeah, he kind of hides from them.
There's a long sequence where it's sort of like they're working, they want to have these moments, but it's very hard to track what Dracula's motivation is for any movement in the scene, other than that they want to have it be a bunch of close calls, because there's no reason for him to just not come out and immediately dispense with these two guys. Yeah, they're just gonna have them Costello noticing things, and then Abbott comes in and says there's nothing happening. But like, why, like, Dracula goes off and hides at one point and poses like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure it out. And it occurred to me that there was a lot of, it occurred to me that they didn't feel the need at that era of movie making. It just shows that, like, they didn't solve it and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
The movie itself didn't even, like, it's the type of, if you saw it in a modern movie, it would make you angrier because you'd be aware of how many different levels something had to get approved by. To me, it just sort of felt like, yeah, we never really figured it out. Just, Dracula, you go over there now come out like you're going to get him. Now back away, no, get him. And the reason that he doesn't get him is because then the movie would be over.
Yeah. Yeah.
That scene was fascinating to me because by the time you get to the ending, that part where they're running away, every move is so motivated and so justified. And and it's interesting to me also just what a low priority this movie was, like, and how people didn't want to do it, and the idea that, like, Boris Karloff didn't want to do it, and then he agreed to promote it.
Yeah. And then,
on the condition that he didn't have to watch it, which is a fascinating.
That wasn't even what I was going to say. Then, like, one of the next movies that they make is Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer, Boris Karloff, who I just watched it because I watched it maybe a month ago, because I was like, I'll watch some more of these because this is the one I like go and rewatch if I'm going to watch it. I don't think he's the killer. He's barely in it. And it was like a last second thing that they added him to it, where, like, that was not the name of the movie. That was not what the movie was about. And they, like, threw him in at the very last second.
It's interesting because it's sort of like, it reminds me of, like, Kyle MacLachlan not wanting to be in the Twin Peaks movie. So they have to, like, cut his part down. Yeah. And I'm sure that part of him at the time, he's like, I don't want to get pigeonholed as Agent Cooper. Now, of course, Kyle MacLachlan would do anything that Twin Peaks, like, he's now, like, proud of it, not ashamed of it, not afraid of being typecast. If Boris Karloff had known, the smart play would have been to be in this movie, and, like, this would have been, like, the most popular movie, the most beloved movie in which he'd play Frankenstein. It's crazy, the idea that he posed for publicity photos of him buying a ticket and looking up at the poster and stuff. And he's just like, don't make me watch the movie.
Yeah. I will say he hadn't played Frankenstein in a while. Right. And the guy who plays him in this movie is this guy, Glenn Strange, who was mostly like a Western guy. Yeah. And he was just a big guy. And he plays Frankenstein in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, I think. So it was not like, oh, Boris is out, we got to find this new guy. Like, this guy had been doing it. You know, right? And I think it's also a fact. It's also crazy that that's what this movie is called. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. I love the title because so many crossovers. You know, they always go for the verses. It's always these guys are going to fight.
They barely meet him. Like. Have you met Frankenstein? He woke up and chased me around the room.
What is it? Dracula? No, I guess the Wolfman probably has the biggest connection to them in this movie.
If we were back in the room and we were coming up with a title for this movie, I don't think I'd call it Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, even though it's objectively a great title.
Great title. Yeah.
It's a great title, but it is not. It is sort of the Hulk running.
Yeah.
kind of title, which is a reference to in the Albert Brooks movie Modern Romance. They're dubbing the sound, and they're like, we have a sound effect of running, of footsteps, and it's from the Incredible Hulk, and it's labeled Hulk running. And then when they put the sound on, you hear the steps, but also you hear, and they're like, it should be Hulk screaming. And I do feel like this title, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, like if someone's like, what happens in the movie, you would not say, well, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. It's really funny and crazy to me that that's what it's called, given it's
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in today's world would be the most like SEO friendly. Like it's like the easiest to like search for it, you know? But
Right.
I think Meet the Monsters.
Yeah.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
probably the title.
I also think the fact that you have Bela Lugosi as Dracula
for the second time ever.
Right. And the last time.
I
for
think
that.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
I think I'd be super angry if I was Bela Lugosi and this movie was called Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, because it's kind of like.
But I don't think anyone was trying to keep Bela Lugosi happy. You know what I mean? Like Bela Lugosi was lucky that he got this job.
Yeah, it's
At
true.
this point.
And I understand he had to like campaign for it heavily. They weren't going to put him in this. They were because somebody else I forget, I should know offhand, but somebody else was already consistently playing Dracula. He was only in the first one.
He was like John Carradine, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were going to go that way, and like he and his agent or whoever had to like, you know, throw a fit and say, no, why? How could you put anybody else in this movie but Bela Lugosi? You know.
Yeah.
I do want to show a few years ago there was I guess I can share screen on here. I didn't know that I could do that.
Go for it.
There was an auction going on in New York that my friend and I went to, and it was purely because I don't think I can. Yeah, there you go. They had his costume from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein there. That's like the original one, and they were auctioning it off.
Wow.
How much did it go for?
I think it was like 25,000 or like some like very high number.
Yeah, not bad.
But that's also like an original poster from then when they were promoting it behind it. I just wanted to pull that up because I thought it was cool.
That is cool. How much would you pay for that on eBay?
How much would I pay for it?
Yeah, if you found it.
I mean, if I found that and it was like completely like legit, like they're like, this is it, here's all the paperwork, I feel like it would be a lot, you know?
You do a big quarantine buy on that?
It would be like one where if people asked me, I'd be like, I'm not going to tell you. I can't tell you. I'm sorry. I can't tell you.
You'd buy the poster?
No.
The cape, the costume, that's what you want?
I mean, I'd love both of them. The cape,
I would much rather have that poster if I was you than the cape. Show that
Sure.
again. Show it again. But I would just make it the wall to your apartment. I would
yeah.
make
Well, but that's the thing. But then you gotta
How would you get
frame
in?
it, and you gotta, there's a lot. You gotta find a wall that's that big. Also, you can see
That
me.
wall behind you looks like it could sustain that poster.
Do you see me in this picture?
Whoa! Jump scare.
Jump scare! Look at that little guy.
How did they let you behind there?
It was. I mean, if you look, it's like it's just cordoned off like that. Like it's not a big. Because I think he was buried in the one from the 1931 movie, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. Yeah, he insisted on being buried in his cape, which is a boss move, as they say.
Yes.
Going down in your cape, and I think
And why we don't see your feet in that?
It's because my legs were actually in the legs of the costume.
The scary thing to me about that is like, 25,000 is obviously a lot, but
I bet it was more than that.
well, the thing is, like, if it was 50,000 or more,
Yeah.
what scares me about the $25,000 number is I feel like I could scrape that together.
Yeah.
And that's kind of terrifying because I'm imagining like I'd have nothing and then I'd be like, well, I've just got this Bela Lugosi costume. Like it'd be kind of like a terrifying. Whereas like when you hear about something that goes for $1 million, you're just like, well,
wait
I'd
a
never
second.
be able to-
Hang on.
did you find
According to Abbott and Costello fanclub.com, these things both failed to sell at auctions.
wow.
The cape initially expected to hit high. I was very off on the numbers. I want to be clear. The cape was initially expected to hit the high six figures, topped out at 280,000.
Oh, see, now when I hear that number, it doesn't scare me because I could never.
Yeah, the poster. They thought the poster would bring 75 to 100,000, and it brought 50,000.
Yeah,
bummer. So you could make an offer on that right now.
I guess I could make an offer, probably.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's scary when the numbers start to approach something where you think like, oh, I could conceivably make a very poor decision with all my money.
Yeah.
And when it gets higher, you just start to be like, well, I could never be in the conversation for it.
Sure.
Yeah, you could picture a version of reality in which you traded everything, like you just had nothing but
everything, and it's just like all I have is Bela Lugosi's costume, and I wear it around, ruin the value of it.
Yeah,
and people would kind of wonder, right? Like people in your life would be like, "Did you hear what Connor did? He traded everything he had. All he has is this Bela Lugosi cape. What's happening with him?"
It'd be a great final thing to do. Well, my last decision I made was buying that costume, and I was ruined.
Something about this movie that I was impressed by. Like I said, I'd never really seen Abbott and Costello, but I'd seen Universal Monsters. Obviously, I knew what that was, and had seen those throughout life. Was how well the tone actually does work. You think those are two such contrasting ideas. Abbott Costello, which is this very sort of bit-based slapstick, very like influenced by Chaplin and Keaton and things like that, paired with these especially in this time, now people look back and are those movies as scary as they once were? Maybe not, but in their time, that was genuinely what a horror movie looked like, right? Yeah. And you would think it'd be very hard to take those two things and put them together. It would just be a mess. And like there are the moments where you kind of have to take yourself out of like Dracula sneaking around when they open the coffin, right? Because you're like, why would he be doing that? He's Dracula. He could dispose of them in a second. It's like, well, just because the movie's more entertaining if he does it. But I mean, it really capitalizes. And the finale of this movie is fantastic. It is so much fun. There's so much happening. It really is like a grand finale where you have all these iconic monsters finding a way to fit in the story. And the jokes never feel, it never feels like unnecessary comic relief or like it's breaking. Like they really did figure out the formula to how those characters. I don't even know what like contemporary how you would do this now. Like,
well, it would be Anna Kendrick and Rebel Wilson meet the Babadook.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking like Key and Peele, Pennywise, right?
Sure.
And people, I don't know how easily you could make something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you probably couldn't very easily make something like that, but how people would even respond to it,
I mean, the crazy thing also is that this is the final appearance of these characters in Universal movies, like in this form. This is the last time Bela Lugosi, this is the last time Lon Chaney Jr., it's the last time Glenn Strange plays him. And they don't all show up again together in a movie until Van Helsing, another movie that I love a lot. This movie is the original Van Helsing, and I just want to make sure everyone knows that. But it's crazy that this is like the finale. This is the last time that you see these characters that you've been following. Like 1931 is Dracula and Frankenstein, so that's like almost 20 years.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah, and it's got Lon Chaney as Wolfman, who has like this crazy run. They don't get Mummy in there, but they do.
There is an Abbott and Costello meet the Mummy though.
Yeah, they did Mummy, and then they did meet Boris. Which I think it's so funny that like the next one is just they meet Boris Karloff. Like it's not a character name. It's just Boris wanted to do it.
So 1948, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. 1949, Abbott and Costello meet the killer Boris Karloff. 1951, Meet the Invisible Man. 1953, Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. 1955, Meet the Mummy. And that's their last Universal movie.
Yeah.
I think Boris Karloff is also Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of like Scooby-Doo borrows a lot from the structure of this and in terms of like the way that they can interact and meet various, that's sort of in some ways the template for that blend of like comedy and horror.
Yeah.
And like cameos of, you know, they'll meet the Harlem Globetrotters or the Three Stooges, or, you know, like that. Yeah, it's interesting. There was an example of something that I was thinking of today where I'm like, oh, the modern version of this is this, and now it's escaped my mind. But it does feel like something that there are definitely things that I feel like you could do this more often if people were willing to have more fun with their image.
Yeah.
Like it's not hard to imagine a world in which in the late 90s, if they had been down for it, you could have made a Seinfeld movie that would have been like the Seinfeld gang meets all the Universal monsters. And you could have, and I don't, like, it sounds dumb, but like Jerry Seinfeld loves these movies, I'm sure. And is there a, yeah.
They met Jerry.
They met Jerry.
But that to me seems like money that was left on the table that like in 1990, whatever, that they could have been like, let's make a Seinfeld movie and make it legitimately a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we can split them all off and they each get their own plot. Like you just structure it like a Seinfeld episode, but with monsters.
Sure.
Sure.
I think,
what other franchises would have been good for this? Like what other
monster specific?
Yeah, I think so. Meeting people.
I think a good case could be made for, like, obviously this is Shaun of the Dead, but Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, you know, meet Freddy and Jason. Like that could be fun, you know.
Yeah.
With modern horror. But I think you're right. I think maybe people are so precious about some of these things now that you know, it doesn't lend itself to just having fun with it, which is an interesting way. It loops back around to what we were talking about with Star Wars, where it's like, oh, now it's so they're so invested, you know, that the idea of it being taken anything less than seriously borders on offensive. Whereas this, I would imagine people were very invested in Universal monsters.
Yeah.
You know, it was very successful. I mean, they had like you said, Patrick, like a 20-year run where like that was the definition of like a horror genre. You know, that's what it was, and I'm sure people were very invested in it. But you definitely have to leave certain reservations at the door to watch something that's so tonally different, hang out with it. But they're succeeding in this, which was what was so surprising to me. I'd heard of this before, and I knew there had been like sequels and things like that. But the idea that it would also be the culmination, you know, you've got Lon Chaney and Bela Lugosi, and obviously there are Dracula movies after this, you know, Christopher Lee and all of that, and there's other, and I think like The Mummy really has like a decade run after this too. But it's so funny to think, you know, we obviously Universal tries this again, you know, recently. Dark Universe, they think we're gonna marvel at cinematic universe, and they totally get it wrong, where it's like this kind of is cinematic universe before that idea even exists, where all these threads do connect at the end, where it really is genuinely thrilling to see like Bela Lugosi's Dracula like battling Lon Chaney's Wolfman, and like see them in the room and like like it actually I was completely compelled by it. It wasn't even
it's not something that if you hear the idea, you're like, oh yeah, sure, that'll be fine. But then when it's happening, you're like, this is cool. This is fun. Like actually seeing it. And they were doing that. I mean, they were doing that with the other movies too, with like you know, there's the Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, and then there's like the House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein stuff. But they just get messy at some point, which like I feel like franchises could use some of that now, where it's like, just let it get messy and like crazy, and nothing matters. Like this is all just goofy make-em-ups. Like who cares how clean you know, the narrative is.
I'll tell you, Universal. So, if someone wanted to make an Abbott and Costello, like a CGI animated Abbott and Costello now, who would have the rights to that? Would you have to settle with the estates, or
it'd probably have to be the estates? Yeah,
because Universal, I really think, if given what they have in their vaults, I really think that they're making a mistake if they don't ever make like a CGI animated Abbott and Costello Meet the Parents. Because that's a universal property.
Is that what you were looking up on your phone?
Yeah, who really Meet the Parents, and it was Universal. And if it does well, then you can have them meet the Fockers, and you can have them meet the little Fockers.
People are Leadlight, our buddy Leadlight, is asking, didn't A and C not get along? Would it be hard to reconcile their estates? I think it was fraught towards the end. I think it was a very on again, off again relationship. Towards like when Lou died, they were not getting along, I believe is the case.
Also, if you're negotiating, and since we're referring to them as A and C, which I've never seen that before, if their estates are giving you trouble, here's what you negotiate. You say, we don't even need you. Let's get AOC.
Oh.
We'll have AOC meet Frankenstein.
Also, Horde Jedi's comment there is very funny.
That's good.
Great.
Yeah,
I hadn't even considered a contemporary like reimagining of Abbott and Costello, which I think in the nature of like they always have to try that the IP that they have. Everybody has to try it at least one more time. It's inevitable. I'm actually surprised it hasn't happened.
You make them. I think if you were to do a cartoon version of those, it would work very well because they're. If someone said to me, make an animated Abbott and Costello or make another version of like an animated Bugs Bunny, I'd be much more inclined to do Abbott and Costello because I feel like you have more freedom with a cartoon version of them in some ways, you know? Mm-hmm. No, Meet the Deedles was Disney, so you couldn't have Meet the Deedles.
I mean, it is fascinating looking at their film career in general. And I want to be clear, I'm not like an Abbott and Costello historian. Like, I don't know all the details. But it is interesting that their first movie is 8 years earlier, at least according to this set. And there's like 10 to 15 movies that are not Meet the Blanks. And then they just fall into Meet the Blanks. And then it seems like the majority of their movies until the end are Meet the Blanks, which is just like, you wonder, I mean, they did not want to do this, but clearly it went well. And they were like, oh yeah, I guess this is our thing now. But you wonder,
like road movies with Hope and Crosby, where everything from the road to this, or, you know.
Yeah.
I do regret to inform you as well that Meet Dave was a 20th Century Fox property, so Disney owns it. So,
but what about Dave? Dave? Who owned Dave?
Dave, the
Kevin Kline movie.
Just Dave. You could kind of, and people would show up and be a little disappointed.
Yeah, what a lawsuit that would be if 20th Century Fox says you can't meet Dave. It sounds like you're meeting our Dave instead of just a regular Dave.
But then the lawyers are like, do you really want to make a big deal about this? Do you want to make people remember Dave? Is that really what we're doing?
The hill you want to die on?
Meet Dave? Yeah.
Remember Dave. That's
Warner Brothers. Dave is a Warner Brothers film.
Oh, so he might be in Space Jam 2.
He's only in Space Jam 2. Can I say, if we're going to talk about Space Jam 2, I'm a little disappointed.
Before we fall down that hole, I want to say, just as a product, Abbott and Costello meat substitute, and it would be go with like the Beyond Burger. It would just be something you would sell in that section, in that part of the freezer section. And Abbott and Costello say should invest in like Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger type technology. Mm-hmm. It should be Abbott and Costello meat substitute.
What a way to bring the estates back together.
Yeah. Okay, so Space Jam 2, A New Legacy.
Yeah, it's a new legacy.
Yeah.
The idea of what it was going to be kind of got out before that trailer of like, oh, it's going to be all of Warner Brothers properties. Yeah. I thought, though, the implication was that those, like, their opponents would all be, those characters playing basketball.
Sam from Casablanca, Scatman Crothers from The Shining. Those people. But no, it's not. It's Algae Rhythm, played by Don Cheadle.
Yeah, he's an algorithm. And they just watch. They're just going to sit there. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's a joke. I don't care who you are. That's funny right there.
That's funny.
They just watch. I thought, I wanted to see Pennywise shoot a tree.
I know.
But that's not what they did.
But we don't know. Maybe third act twist, I'm
not going to sit here and trash Space Jam 2 before I've seen it.
That's fair.
And I said this.
Also, tell them what you said today.
I've never seen the original Space Jam, and I think I'm going to go see Space Jam 2 in the theater. And I don't think I'm ever going to watch the original Space Jam.
Do you? Is there a part of you that's afraid you won't be able to follow along?
Not even a little bit. I hope I can't. I would love nothing more than to find myself 20 minutes into Space Jam 2, and I'm like, I don't understand what's happening.
Didn't do the homework.
Did you guys know that there was a man employed for this movie whose official job title was court jester?
Yeah,
I
had read about that. Yeah,
you read about this? This is a guy. No, go ahead. Say what you were going to say.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear behind the scenes, because making these horror movies, they're dramatic, they're intense, and Abbott and Costello, it's not the atmosphere they were used to. They were, always wanted to keep the energy going, always wanted to keep people laughing because they felt like that's what they had to do to create the performance. They couldn't just conjure that from thin air. Like that needed to be where they were at emotionally. They had to actually be in that headspace. So they hired this guy for no other reason than just basically pull pranks on people while they were shooting the film, right?
Yeah, that was it. Just to keep people laughing, which I think is so funny. And I think Abbott and Costello were also miserable making this. So they're like, well, they're not going to be funny. So let's try to keep it fun for everybody else. It's just, you don't hear about that happening anymore. Also, for many years, this movie was banned in Finland.
Ooh.
And I'm trying to Google why.
What happened?
I don't know. The only reason I can find is it was too scary, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that. There must be more of a reason.
No, I think it's interesting because what is funny?
Hang on. Here we go. It was banned in Finland, and Australian censors excised every scene featuring a monster.
So it actually came out, but they had their own cut.
Yeah, it was like 15 minutes. That's really funny.
But I think what is scary and what is funny shifts so much over time.
Yeah.
The example that I always think of is I remember reading in a book about I don't remember what book this was, but there was something where it was like the image is of a theater filled with grown men laughing their heads off at the latest Mickey Mouse cartoon in the early 1930s. That it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. Now, those shorts are very well crafted, but I don't think anybody watches them and laughs anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, or maybe the new ones that are made with more of like a modern sensibility, but even those are targeted more at all ages.
Sure.
But the idea that there was a time in the 1930s where that was the funniest thing there was. Mm-hmm. And I think similarly with what was scary, you have to think about what anyone had ever seen before on a screen.
Yeah. But these movies have been going for 20 years. These movies, 17 years it's been since the first one came out.
Yeah, but I still think like the intensity level of horror movies.
Yeah.
Like maybe like the Silent Nosferatu would be like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. Like, oh, I can't watch or something. But like a movie like this, I think especially because the push and pull of laughter releasing the tension and also feeling like because it's mixing genres, you genuinely don't know what to expect when you're watching this.
Yeah.
I think, for instance, I'll say I was genuinely fooled as a modern 2021 viewer who had not seen these movies before. And you see Costello's love interest at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that the game of it was like, he has this girlfriend and she adores him sincerely. And the joke is like that Abbott can't fathom it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was all there was to it. I was fully expecting to maybe not see that character again once they moved on. So that's me being surprised by a movie that has been around for more than half a century.
Yeah.
And
80.
And I completely I just thought, because I thought it was funny. I thought it's like, oh, like his friend can't understand why she likes him, but she just does.
Yeah.
And I thought they were gonna move on with the plot, and that's all it will have been. It's just it's a joke that like he has a great girlfriend and Abbott can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that makes me wonder, scenes like the scene where like he goes and sits on Frankenstein's lap.
Yeah.
That an audience at the time genuinely wouldn't have known what was going to happen. Were they about to see him get killed by Frankenstein? Or, I think there would just be a lot more. We've just absorbed a lot more storytelling than audiences at that time would have. And so I can understand that, particularly because it's funny, that the scary stuff would be even scarier.
Yeah. I think the thing that makes this movie work is that they treat those characters with respect, and it's not really goofing on them too much. Like there's like a little bit of goofing on him, but it's like Lon Chaney Jr. is still very intense in his scenes when he's like, I did 20 million other men. He's like, no, I'm not joking around,
And like, there are consequences, because like when Frankenstein gets a hold of that woman, he just throws her out the window.
Yeah, he very violent.
Now in that scene, that is not Glenn Strange, the guy who's playing Frankenstein. He broke his ankle when they were filming that scene, so it's actually Lon Chaney Jr. in the makeup because he was just hanging around and had nothing else to do that day.
And it was the actress. Well, what's the actress's name who plays?
Is it Lenore Aubert?
Yeah. She wanted to do all her own stunts.
Yeah.
In the movie, and the insurance company wouldn't let her do the stunt of being thrown out the window.
Yeah. And
as it turns out, the woman they did throw out the window got hurt when they threw her out the window.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
It sounded like pretty pure chaos throughout the making of this film. And like you had hinted at, Patrick, Abbott and Costello, I think, were hesitant to even do it. I think one of the, I don't remember, you probably heard the same quote as well, but like Costello said, like, my 5-year-old daughter could write a better script than this. Like they had to offer him a ton of money to do it, and he got to pick the director, and then they hired a comedian on, to bamboozle the actors, and like Bela Lugosi got upset because he like ruined one of his, like, because he would come in and ruin takes on purpose just to entertain people, and I guess Bela Lugosi was like that, we're working. No jokes while we're working. Like, it was not only just a clash of tone on screen, but it works, but also just from these people from such disparate worlds and levels of filmmaking having to figure out how they were going to coexist. It just sounds like chaos.
It's also pretty crazy to think about, because, it's now this beloved film that influenced so many people and continues to be popular. And I wonder, like, if you could go back in time and tell everybody involved, hey, listen, this is going to be very well received. It's going to be banned in Finland. It's going to be this. It's going to be. If you could just tell them everything, like when I hear, oh, I don't want to do this, the script is a piece of shit. Part of me is like, I wonder if they had any idea that this would actually have a lifespan. What was stopping anyone, even if they didn't know that? What was stopping anyone from being like, well, let's really get it. Like, if you don't like the script, let's get into it. Let's write a really great script if you don't like this. That always kind of fascinates me, because it's not like before you get to the point where it's like, let's just offer them a ton of money. It's just like, well, what do you want? Like, who do you want to write it? Or like, what's your idea of a great script, and what do we need to do to make this work? Yeah. But
I think you can understand if you're them coming off of making movies and comedy and stuff for 20 years to be like, well, now we're going to throw you in with the monsters. Like, it's just like, ugh, come on, really?
Yeah, but like, I'm trying to think of what would be a stupid idea for me now. Like, if I'd do anything, but like, I'm just trying to think like the modern version of it. If you're like a successful, let's say that's like, who's like a big popular person now who does quality work in movies and comedies?
I don't know. I don't know. Steve Carell.
Yeah.
All right, let's say like Steve Carell gets an offer that it's like you're going to be the star of the M&M's movie.
Sure.
The M&M's gang is finally going to make their big screen debut in an adventure you've never seen before. That's like a property that people might be like, oh no, there's no way this is going to be good.
Well, here's my counterpoint. I've always said that it's insane that they don't have a movie.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing saner.
I've admired their restraint. I've admired the M&M's company's restraint, and not actually because now things with much less to offer have gone ahead and said, "Fuck it, we'll make a movie."
Well, what's another like the Geico movie, or what's the? I'm trying to think.
Sure.
What's the?
But I think you're even thinking
we're gonna make a Limu Emu movie.
But I think you're thinking of it wrong. What is something that like has been in popular culture, has been a movie franchise for the last 20 years where we're like, oh, you're still doing these?
Fockers.
Like,
that's the best one-to-one of like, oh my God, another Fockers movie? I mean, truly, we've already landed on it. That is the best example. Unless it was going to be like Abbott and Costello meet Lord of the Rings.
That'd be fascinating.
I would like it even funnier if they put a "the" in it. So it's Abbott and Costello meet the Lord of the Rings.
They just meet him. Yeah. There's really nothing else. Even like obviously you try to draw a modern parallel, but I can't even really think of anything else just like this. Like they do one more like with Monster Squad, right? Which is like not quite Universal Monsters, but it's spiritually it's exactly what it's going for. You know, like, and I like that movie a lot. You know, I don't know if it's classically like a traditionally great movie, but as somebody who loves those monsters and like Goonies and stuff like that, like it totally hits all the right notes for me. I can't think of anything really that gets close to this. And like you guys said, this doesn't like poking fun. I mean, it has fun with the Universal monsters, you know, organically, but there's moments of like genuine dramatic weight. Like it opens on Lon Chaney, who's like tortured by his burden of being a werewolf and just wants to stop monsters from killing people. Apparently, and then we cut to them, you know, sorting packages and you know, doing pratfalls and things. And but somehow like honors the spirit of both of those in a way that maybe it wouldn't be clear on the page. Maybe it doesn't read that well, but when you actually see it. And like you have a director who gets it, and they're performing like there's like it totally worked. That's what I was surprised by. I was like, wow, this doesn't just work within the context of like 1948. This works now, and I don't even know who I would trust to even try to do it again.
The funny thing about it to me was how much more invested I was in the final third of it than I was in like the beginning or middle third of it. That like that's normally the part where I start losing interest even in a good movie, or I sort of settle into a sort of autopilot as a viewer, or sort of cruise control. Like I also thought they really nailed the very end. I thought the endings of comedies are always interesting to me because there's a lot of pressure to end on a good joke. And a lot of great comedies don't end on a good joke. Even really good comedies sometimes don't. The last joke is just sort of like, no, it's over, you know, and it's a really good final joke. Especially considering that this is the first time that they've done one of these mashups.
Yeah.
You know?
But I will say they do drop the ball on that final joke. Because 3 years later, they make Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, and it's not Vincent Price.
Right.
You got to get Vincent Price back. What are we doing?
See, that's the thing that they would never do now. They would never. They never think about making Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, and it doesn't have like complete perfectly scouted tie-in energy. Like oh, we'll just make that they meet the Invisible Man now. Like it doesn't have the same. Like they would never do that now, which is kind of the fun chaos, I guess, of this time where they're like, we're just gonna throw anything at the wall.
Abbott and Costello Meet the Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
Abbott and Costello.
I think that would genuinely be
Lead Light
Abbott and Costello Meet Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
And basically the way you would make this movie, it'd be a bummer, but it'd only take one afternoon. Somebody go to Chevy Chase's house with a microphone. Doesn't even have to be a good microphone, just a basic podcasting thing. And go talk to him for the day.
Yeah.
And then you just use whatever he says in then you write it around whatever stuff he says. Yeah. And it's just horrifying. And you just get two actors to then improvise Abbott and Costello reacting to like being stuck in Chevy Chase's house and they can't figure out a way out.
And he's sort of
like explaining to them why he's better at comedy than they are. And
I mean, Lead Light is bringing up a good point.
Oh dear.
Are you okay?
That was
okay?
You are just bow fingering Chevy Chase.
Are you okay? Patrick, are you okay?
Here's the thing. The Invisible Man is pissed that we're talking about him so much.
Patrick, is your head okay?
No.
That looks... Patrick?
That's fine.
Okay.
I
was afraid by you not moving.
Yes.
I was like, oh no, he really isn't okay.
It's fine.
Is the poster okay?
Yeah, it's plastic. It's not a glass frame.
Okay, good.
Thank God.
What was I going to say? Abbott and Costello Meet Invisible Man have a great. There's a great boxing scene in it because guess what? One of the boxers is the Invisible Man, so he's not really there. So it's just a bunch of people being like, like getting thrown around and shirt being. It's like that scene in Fight Club on the towards the end.
Oh, don't spoil it.
Sorry.
I like the implication of that because then there's just a sinister naked man in the boxing ring grabbing you and not letting you win your fight. Something I also want to say about the finale is it does end on a brilliant joke. I mean, it's like it truly is the perfect like chef's kiss of the entire thing. And it's great just to even hear Vincent Price in it. But the whole finale really also again doesn't abandon its horror movie influence, and like all of the monsters have these terribly gruesome deaths. Yeah, like Wolfman and Dracula fly out a window and fall.
But deaths that should not kill those characters.
No.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, like it's not a silver bullet or a stake or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. Abbott and Costello join Fight Club. This is fun.
That's it. I've got them right here. There they are.
Yeah, there they are. But yeah, it is like the Frankenstein monster burns and falls into a lake, and there's a lot. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm like powerful inferno. Like it's a lot of fire.
Yeah.
But I also think I was saying this to Patrick earlier that I really do like that they address at the end rather than just letting it go by that Costello spends the whole movie telling the truth and not being believed by Abbott, and that he finally is like, next time will you believe me when I tell you what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I like that as I like that it's not just they spend the whole movie with him being frustrated by the fact that he's witnessing things that he's not seeing. And I like that.
Yeah.
As a tying it up that he gets a little bit of justified, like I was right about this,
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has a tough journey in this. He's like emotionally manipulated by two women, one of which who really just wants to steal his brain because she thinks he's just such an idiot that he's actually going to be more obedient than the actual Frankenstein. So I can steal his brain. Yeah. And it'd be easier to control you than it is a shambling corpse made of 10 different cadavers.
Yeah.
That's gotta I feel like that emotionally has to you get a lot of baggage from that.
Yeah, you don't see these characters again after this movie, and I would be fascinated to know what's Chick and Wilbur, Chick and Wilbur. What are they up to? What's going on after this? Because it's
that's a great name for its own character, a chicken character named Chicken Wilbur.
Chicken Wilbur. If I ever make like an animated animal movie, Chicken Wilbur. That's the character.
It's a sophisticated reference.
Yeah,
just sounds like a normal name. I wonder. I kind of wish they were just called Abbott and Costello in this. Yeah, I like when he yells Abbott.
Yeah. I was that was confusing for me at first. So like ordinarily they are Abbott and Costello in the things that they're in, right?
No, actually no.
Oh, okay.
They're usually playing a character. I'm gonna confirm this. Let me just type in some movies just to.
Are they
true? Patrick, I also think that when you were talking about the way this ties into your other influences.
Oh no! I typed in just a random one. I typed in "Keep 'Em Flying" from 1941. Abbott plays a character named Blackie, and Lou plays Heathcliff. So I think it's like
cats?
Huh?
Are they cats?
No, I don't think so. Blackie, Benson, and Heathcliff.
Those sound like cats.
They do sound like cats.
Like coaching cats from A Tale of Two Kitties.
Yeah.
Better.
And I do think, Patrick, the fact that Dracula appears as a puppet bat and an animated character.
And do you know who animated it?
Walter Lantz.
Wow, don't sound so excited.
Having fun.
Dude, he had to submit that was the answer.
Wow. Keep talking though, Connor. Keep talking.
No, I think that's part of why it's got everything for you. It's got puppets, it's got cartoons.
It's true.
It's got real Draculas.
The big three for me.
Yeah.
It's checking every box.
Yeah. I also like in this movie, and I'm sorry, Taylor, if you want to talk about different things, but we're going to talk about Mr. McDougal for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I like just the irrationally angry guy who you're just like, just relax for like 2 minutes and it'll be fine. Just calm down. He like comes in so hot, and I think it's funny every time.
Mm-hmm.
That archetype, appears where he's just like furious at every single thing, and I think that guy really sells it. I think he's got a good like angry voice. And yeah, that's my point about Mr. McDougal that I wanted to make.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Mr. McDougal's apparently actually in the Twitch chat right now. He has
Meet Dave.
Oh, meet Dave. Yeah, Mr. McDougal.
Meet Dave McDougal. There he is. Before we do wind down for the evening, was there anything about Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein that we didn't quite cover that was on your mind?
I mean, there's so much on my mind about this movie. Connor, why don't you answer that one?
No, we covered everything.
We nailed it.
No, I think I wonder what I would have. I mean, I'm glad I saw it today. I wonder if I would have liked it more as a kid. I didn't like scary movies as a kid, so I wonder whether or not. I think I would have been a little scared of this as a kid.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the Universal monster movies, like the old ones?
I don't think
I wonder if you would like them. I bet you would like them.
Yeah. I think you would.
Well, it's too late for me now. I think that I'm not meaning to shift into my George Lucas impression. I'm just getting tired. And I'm realizing that's all my impression is. It's just me saying tired. Like the more tired and grumpier I get, the more it just sounds like, oh yeah, I guess that was my impression all along.
The lines are blurred.
I what?
The lines get blurred.
Yeah, they do. I think yeah, I don't know whether or not maybe it is better that I saw it at this age, because I'm watching it and I'm maybe not getting as engaged as I would have as a kid in this, or I kind of wish I'd gone to see it in a theater maybe, because I do think that with comedy, in the same way that like, sorry, airplane.
Connor lives at JFK Airport. I don't know if he lives in the Delta terminal.
Yeah, I think that comedy in movies, like I've only seen the movie Talladega Nights once in the theater, and I laughed really hard,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone was laughing really hard. And I wonder if I would laugh even a tenth as hard if I was just watching that alone in my apartment. I don't think I would. I don't even think if I watched it with a big group of people in an apartment that I would laugh as much as I did in the theater seeing that. And I think of all the movie comedies that I've seen in theaters over the years and how much, like, I really liked the Borat sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of bummed that because of the pandemic that the experience of that wasn't being in a packed theater where people were really missing jokes because we're laughing so loudly.
Yeah.
And even with comedy that is, decades and decades and decades old, I think seeing it with an audience, you just like, if five other people start laughing, it just enhances your feeling of a connection to the other people who are also finding something funny.
Yeah.
And it's interesting having done a comedy live stream for almost a year. The laughter that I am used to is Griffin and Patrick and whoever the guests are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to know that like most of the laughs that anyone was getting from us were happening in isolation. We weren't hearing it. I haven't heard the laughter of any of the people who are enjoying our show. So you'd see like right now I'm seeing the chat and people are laughing, but it's like getting an IOU. It's not the same as a collective social experience. And because that's what laughed, like when I was a freshman in college, it was the first time I got to see Mystery Science Theater 3000 in my dorm room. And I always think of that because I would laugh alone in the theater.
Yeah.
And not in the theater, in my dorm room. And I remember thinking, oh, this is weird. There's no one here, but I'm uncontrollably laughing. And realizing that like, oh, this must be funny at another level because I was watching other things that I also thought were funny, but I wasn't laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That there is a certain percentage of laughs that come from being around other people, that it's almost like prairie marmots or something where one of them makes a noise and they all make the noise. And I missed that, and I would have loved to have seen this movie in that kind of context.
I saw it at Metrograph, which is a theater in New York that plays a lot of old movies.
People laughing.
People were laughing, but I think they sort of screwed it because they played it at like 10 a.m. on a Saturday.
The funniest time of the week.
Which is not the funniest time of the week. And there weren't that many people there. So it was like...
I don't think that's the funniest time of the week.
When is the funniest time of the week?
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, people are saying that seems like a kid slot. I don't remember if it specifically was, but it was not as crowded as I wanted it to be. And I was there with someone who had never seen it, and I was like definitely laughing, I think, the most in the theater. But it was like interesting to see it on a big screen because I'd never seen an Abbott and Costello movie on a big screen. Like it's always been, taped off TV or on a DVD or something like that.
Right.
So it was just fascinating. I don't know if it worked better for me on a TV or if it like felt broader when you see it bigger on a screen, in a way that I don't know if I was used to. Like it's a different experience. But yeah, I don't know. It was. I'm glad I saw it, but it was definitely a different experience than I would have guessed or maybe would have wanted.
It's always better to have that palpable energy in the room that you can receive, but also contribute to as well. And like, I would imagine this, screening in 1948 also has the added factor of maybe having moments that, like we said earlier, are genuinely frightening and scary. And that, it's true with comedy, and it's true with, watching horror movies, other people being scared at the same time. It creates some sort of strange energy that you can sort of tap into. So like, this is on both ends doing that. So I can only imagine what a unique and like thrilling, like I can see why people responded to it so positively, because it was probably, there was a lot to get out of it in an audience. And I would love to see this even now in a theater, because I think you would get a lot more from it than just watching it on the TV at home, like with most things, but
Taylor, I have 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
These are real questions.
Okay.
What's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
The scariest movie I've ever seen. The one that's probably most consistently scary for me, because some movies you see them once, and you can never get. It's like comedies, the jokes are never funnier the second time.
Yeah.
And the scares are never as intense the second time. But I think I always, I've talked about it a couple of times before. The one that always maintains that for me is probably The Shining, which feels like almost an obvious answer.
Oh, wow, interesting.
But what that's going for, where it's more atmospheric and tonally frightening and like psychologically troubling.
Yeah.
I saw it at a drive-in this past summer, which was like the only way to, enjoy a movie outside of your own home was to go to drive-in. And it was amazing because I'd never seen it outside of just watching it on my TV. And I was with my girlfriend who'd never seen it, and just watching how much it did disturb her was super interesting. It was kind of, it was sort of validating in a way. It was like, yeah, this movie is, I still feel that to this day. And I was like, yeah, it is that scary. I enjoy some people get upset about things like jump scares that, some people think that stuff's cheap. I don't really think that way, but if I had a preference, The Shining puts me in a place psychologically that most films still can't. It holds up super well for me. So I'd probably say that is still something that can scare me, even though I know everything that's going to happen. I know all the lines, I know the plot. I'm still freaked out by it.
Question number 2.
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to be?
The question.
Where is The Shining in 2021?
No. What's the funniest movie you've ever seen?
Wow. That's actually harder for me to answer, because I hadn't really thought about it. Like I don't have like a ready to go answer for that. Funniest movie.
Connor, do you have one?
Funniest movie?
Yeah, or scariest.
I don't know. I'm not sure if they're there. I do have. I'm going to type something in the private chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is not that I'm.
Password?
What?
Is it your bank password?
Yeah, my password.
Is it going to be end the show?
Yeah, no, it's like, get me out of here. No, it's I let Patrick pick this movie, but if you ever wanted to have us back, I have a movie.
Yes,
I would pitch. And I don't want you to say what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had one that I'm like, because I just recently rewatched it, and I think it counts as a horror movie legitimately, even though not all of it is horror.
Yeah.
But I do think it could be discussed as a horror movie, and I classify it as a horror movie.
Yeah.
I am super fascinated by that answer. And first of all, I would love to have both of you back easily, no question, if you were interested in coming back.
Movie.
And for that film, because I try not to put really any restrictions. I just say, pick a horror film. And but even still, I don't think anybody would think to go that way.
But I think there are aspects of it. It doesn't fit into the genre of horror.
Yeah.
But I think a large percentage of that film qualifies in my book as horror. It's just that it's not a supernatural film. But it's interesting because I saw people debating on Twitter about whether Alien was a horror movie. And I'm like, unquestionably, it's a horror movie that is also a science fiction movie, and it can be both in the same way that Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is a horror comedy. I always think, it's just like I used to hate in drama school whenever like the argument about whether something counts as art or not. And I was always never interested in that as an argument. I always thought like it's much more interesting to talk about whether you like something or not. But if anyone, like if I say this remote control is my art exhibit because I put a little piece of tape on it or something, I don't think it's fun to debate whether or not it's art. I think it's more fun to debate whether you get anything out of it. Because then you at least have you can say, I don't get anything out of this art. It doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't stimulate me or whatever. Make your argument personal rather than try to make it objectively true, which is sort of that thing of like Martin Scorsese saying Marvel isn't cinema. I think it's much more interesting to just say like, it's not my thing, as opposed to trying to, it's not what I consider great cinema, or it doesn't do the things for me, as opposed to trying to get everyone to agree that it can't qualify as the label of it.
Yeah.
And to me, with genre, I think what's really interesting about genre is not like that there are certain things that like follow all the strict rules. And you can say, oh, this is definitely horror. This is definitely comedy. I used to, in the local Blockbuster Video in my hometown, used to have a really funny distinction that amused me, which is they had like the comedy section, and then they had a section called wild comedy. And it was basically if the cover looked sexual in any way, it would be a wild comedy. And there was another video store years later that had a romance section. That was one of their genres. They had all these different genres and subgenres. And in their romance section, they were just basing it on what the cover looked like. So there were Neil LaBute's first 2 movies were in the romance section, In the Company of Men and Your Friends and Neighbors, possibly 2 of the least romantic films that have ever been made. But the covers to the videos look like they could be romantic films.
Yeah.
And I was just imagine. I can't imagine. I wonder if anyone's evening was ever ruined by people who were like, let's rent a romance tonight. A romantic movie. Look at this one. Aaron Eckhart. Honey, please. Let's watch In the Company of Men, a romance. 2 movies that are exclusively about cruelty and selfishness. To a shocking degree, even for the 90s. Or was it a little bit the 2000s? I don't know. But yeah, so I'm going to pitch that movie to you as a future one because I think it's a horror film.
I would love to do that, and I obviously would welcome you guys back anytime. And I also don't think we need to worry about anybody else selecting that movie. So
yeah,
reserve it in case someone does. It may be a while because we had already committed to doing this before we completely burned out, and
which I do appreciate you still coming because there's a part of me that wondered, and I would have not, I wouldn't have held it against you if you couldn't have done it. So
it would have been rude.
We're here.
But sometime in the future,
yeah, absolutely.
We'll come back.
But wait, I want to be clear. Before we wrap up, I did not hear your funniest movie.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I got an answer, and then I do also have one question I want to submit to both of you after I answer, and then we'll go to bed.
Deal.
I think if I had to answer the funniest movie I've ever seen, the way I'd approach that is to think, what's the hardest I've ever laughed at a movie? Which totally harkens back to what we were. I don't know. It's hard for me to define this as the funniest movie I ever saw. But to harken back to the conversation we were having, I think it's the hardest I've ever laughed at a movie is like Jackass #2 in the theater.
Sure.
And when I think back to that, I looked it up when exactly that came out. I would have been 14 when that movie came out, which means I had to have gone and see it with my dad, which is strange time. But like packed theater. And it is that thing that was I think Connor mentioned earlier. It's like you laugh so hard that you don't even see all the movie. You're crying. You're laughing so hard. You laugh so hard that you feel like you're losing your mind and you're going to be sick. Like that's And I also, as a 14-year-old boy, like that, there's nothing could be better than that movie.
Yeah,
that's probably the hardest I've ever laughed at a movie.
And that's a movie that a lot of people almost like view that film as sort of the Citizen Kane of its kind of movie. And yet I think I don't know if there ever would have been an age at which I would have had the appropriate reaction to Jackass 2, because I never would watch Jackass the series, and I hadn't seen the first Jackass movie. Wait, is Jackass 2 the one that starts with like they release all those bulls and they run into the houses and stuff?
Yeah, because the first one starts with them when they're in the old. No, the first one they're. Now I'm mixing it up. I think you're right. The second one does have the bulls. Yeah,
I've never seen a Jackass movie.
I honestly, it made me so sad when I watched it, and I knew this is not the right reaction, because I thought that the film was a tragedy about men who didn't understand what actual friendship was.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it and I'm like, I get why everyone else thinks this is funny, but it made me so sad that none of these men understood what it was like to have a friend who cared about their well-being, because it just was so. And I'm like, I know I'm missing the point. Like, I know that I am like Margaret Dumonting these Marx Brothers. I'm not seeing the joy that is here. But I was just like, if this was happening, but I don't have an answer for myself for what the funniest movie I've ever seen is. But I do have an answer I'm going to put forward for the funniest movie I've never seen.
Oh,
and that is the film Goose, starring Chevy Chase.
But you had it right there, ready to go.
Yeah. No, I had walked off to go see what movies do I own on DVD. I've never seen this. I ordered this. It's a Canadian. I mean, half of the back is in French. There's Chevy Chase as the chef who's trying to get that goose.
Oh, he's not so I don't even know what this is. I thought he would be the goose.
I assumed he was the
No, he's not the goose. Even though it looks like Chevy Chase would be the goose. He's I'm going to read you a modern day fable. Goose tells the tale of Randall, a neurotic talking goose who is kidnapped by Congreve Maddox, the principal of the local elementary school. Maddox plans to fatten up Randall so that he can enter him in a cooking contest in Banff, Canada. But Randall has a savior, an 11-year-old Will Donnelly, a sweet and sensitive boy. Will becomes determined to prevent his pal from ending up as a side of foie gras. Together with his sister Emily and some classmates, Will comes up with a bold rescue plan. With the stakes high, a wild goose chase ensues with everyone in hot pursuit. I believe Tom Arnold is the voice of the goose.
Oh, he does speak. That's good.
Yeah, he's a talking goose.
Good.
But I think there was a version of this in which Dave Foley was the voice of the goose.
That's a version that you wanted, or you think there is a actual that released the Foley cut?
I think there is a Foley, release the Foley cut.
Yeah. They did like a Back to the Future where they're like,
this has never been released in the United States of America in any form.
Rare. Goose.
How crooked that middle label is.
Yeah.
Just like nobody cares.
Applied
no
by
liner notes.
So this is a Canadian goose.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
And it's the funniest movie you've never seen, clearly.
This is easily the funniest movie I've never seen.
Are you waiting for like a special occasion? Or is it better to not, like, sometimes the goose in your mind is funnier than the actual goose?
I think that's probably what the case is.
I think I imagine that if I ever was the victim of a home invasion, I would say, wait. First, let's watch this.
It will be my last good memory before you steal all of my stuff.
I would say I feel like there's a home invasion. I panic, but then I say, wait. First, you can have everything. You can do whatever, but just let's watch this. And then we watch the whole movie. And at the end, the guy's like, why did you make me watch that? I'll be like, because I could.
I have one more question for you guys. And you can either answer this separately. You can collaborate on this answer if you want.
Okay.
And just as you could pick when I asked if you could pick a horror movie, you could come at that from any angle you choose. Mm-hmm. You can also come at this from any angle you choose.
Deal.
What is the scariest part of Star Wars?
Ooh. Now, wait, hang on. Yeah, are we just talking about A New Hope, episode 4?
Sorry, the entire Star Wars saga. It could be conceptual, it could be a character, it could be anything.
For me, the scariest part of Star Wars, and it's on initial viewing only, but I can still feel what's scary about it, is when C-3PO in Cloud City follows the R2 unit into the hallway, and we don't see what he sees, and he says, "Oh no! Oh wait! And then you just have the shot where he gets blasted, and you see like part of his body go down the hallway, because at that point, if you're watching in the correct order of release, you don't know that they're going to be able to put him back together. So it really is like, I see someone said trash compactor monster. That's a great like horror part of the first one. Legitimately a really scary sequence.
I have my answer.
What's yours?
You know, in the cantina when Dr. Evazan grabs Luke and he says, "He doesn't like you, I don't like you either."
Mm-hmm.
That's the scariest for me, because I really just want people to like me.
Right.
There it is.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with mine. That was the part that scared me the most originally, was the when C-3PO gets murdered, seemingly. Because you didn't know what was doing it. You just it every moment after that feels like danger until like another moment that's really scary right after that is, I always think the expression on Han Solo's face when the gun gets pulled out of his hand, and Harrison Ford's really good at certain kinds of hand acting, and just the way he does.
When
like,
is this?
What?
When is this?
When he goes to shoot Darth Vader, and Darth Vader sucks the gun out of his hand, and he does like really good. Harrison Ford always does really good hand acting whenever he's got a. He's got a point when he's got a, and watch his helplessness when Darth Vader's taking the gun out of his hand.
Yeah.
There's something about that even tough, and he can kill, and he didn't hesitate to shoot at Darth Vader, but you're just like, he's not strong enough to fight anybody in this room.
Yeah.
That's scary to me.
Everything he understands about life has been incorrect, and he has to make
carbonite freezing. That's legitimate. There's a lot of good horror moments in Star Wars, you know.
But see, the carbonite thing, because I don't remember the first time I ever saw it, I obviously knew that he gets out of it fine.
Yeah, that's the advantage I had, was that I had to wait years to find out whether or not he was going to die or not. I also think, even though they show Luke getting a hand right away, when Luke got his hand cut off as a kid, I don't think I fully processed how easy it was to swap out for a new hand.
For sure. And
to me, that was really like devastating. The fact that a character had been physically mutilated. Like, there's so many things in Empire that as a 5-year-old, I was 5 when I watched Empire. There's so many things in that movie. Even just going to Dagobah is like scary. There's so many things in that movie that are. The Wampa is really scary. There's like a lot of horror moments in Star Wars that are really well done.
Do you guys remember like dreams that you had as kids where you're like, I shouldn't remember this, but for some reason I do?
Sure, it just distinctly sticks with you so vividly.
Yeah, you're just like, I don't know why this is the thing. I remember having a dream where I got eaten by Jabba the Hutt, which famously is not something that he does in those movies. But I remember being like, oh, I just got eaten by Jabba the Hutt. That is apparently scary to little kid Patrick.
Yeah,
but that's my answer.
I think for me, what sticks with me, it's such a weird. It stands out still, just versus everything else in those movies, is Luke's like decapitated head in the Darth Vader helmet.
Sure.
It's like, oh my, like that's a very visceral imagery. Like it's happening on just a literal level of like, that's the hero's head removed from his body, and also just. Yeah. The implication of it, you know, that does feel like it's much more surreal than I think Star Wars tends to be, even though it's so fantasy.
Well, I don't think that scared me because I never understood what was going on in that scene.
Yeah.
So I think I was just like, I don't know what this thing is. All right, sure. You know, I think
it probably scared me when I was a kid, but not as much as those other things, for the same reason. It's kind of like, oh, but it's not Luke and Darth Vader. So I guess it's not.
Yeah.
I think it probably, the mood of it scared me, but I probably couldn't make sense of it because that's very almost David Lynchian sort of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. Oh my gosh, guys! Thank you so much for coming on tonight. This has been so fun.
It's been nice talking with you, Taylor.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us, Taylor.
You as well. I always ask where the ghouls and goblins can find you at the end of the show, but I suspect most people here, because we had so many great people from George Lucas Talk Show and Planet Scum join us. I think most people know where to find you, but just for the sake of it, where can people find you?
I mean, you can find me on Twitter at Patrick Cotnoir. I am currently trying to get more followers than the canceled NBC show 1600 Pen. We are well on our way. Guys, don't listen. Let me just talk to the audience for a second. Someone really fucked up, and they were really mean, and they bought a bunch of followers for the 1600 Pen account, and it wasn't cool, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't nice, and I'm not happy about it. But you know what? Joke's on them, because Twitter deleted a lot of those accounts. So now it was just a big old waste of money. Isn't that funny? So I'm actually not as far away as I was before, but we're we still got a little while to go.
How far away are you now? How far away are you now?
I think it's like somewhere around 2,000.
Okay, so you're at 6185.
What?
You're at 6185 right now, is that right?
And I think they're at like 84 or something. But you can also follow the show at G Lucas Talk Show. You can find all of our old episodes on YouTube. Got a lot of great guests. I recommend, if you have never seen the show, just finding a guest that you like and hopping on in. It might not make sense for a little bit, but I assume you'll be able to catch on pretty quick, because we try to explain everything that's going on.
Absolutely.
And you can find me, Connor Ratliff, on Twitter, or at Dead Eyes Podcast. My podcast, Dead Eyes. We're currently working on trying to put together a third season. It might be a little while before it actually comes back, but we are working on it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you like the show, we do this every Thursday night. We're joined by a special guest to discuss a horror film of their choice. Next week, we'll be joined by author Mona Kabani. She just released her novel, Vanilla, to talk about Let the Right One In, which is a great vampire film. I'm excited for that one. And just by the same token, these episodes, the recordings go up on our YouTube channel. We stream on Twitch and YouTube every single Thursday. So feel free to come back, hang out with us. And thank you for watching this one.
Taylor, can I give one plug, not for me, before we leave? It's something that I just thought of that I read a few months ago that I feel like people who watch the show will really like. It's a book called The Lady from the Black Lagoon, which is all about Millicent Patrick, who designed, I'm sure you have it, designed the creature from the Black Lagoon costume, and it's fascinating. She's an animator on like Fantasia. It's all about this author trying to find out who this woman was and whatever happened to her, because she did not get the respect and praise that she deserved at the time. I recommend it. People should read it. It's really good.
I'm going to plug something that's not me. People should follow Lucas Museum on Twitter.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Stay spooky. Thanks, guys.